I just watched Six'em. No. I just watched Six Cream. No. I just watched Scream 6. Let's talk about it. 4 survivors of the Ghostface murders leave Woodsboro behind for a fresh start in New York City. However, they soon find themselves in a fight for their lives when a new killer embarks on a bloody rampage. Now, if you know me, you know that I was not a big fan of the previous Scream movie. Scream 5, also called Scream, the title situation is sort of confusing, but nonetheless, I didn't feel like it did anything particularly new or fresh for the franchise. I felt like overall it was more so a rehash or tip of the cap to the Scream franchise before it without actually moving forward in a new and interesting way. It came off more to me like a soap opera. It was very melodramatic. A lot of the beats didn't work for me from a narrative perspective, and there wasn't many characters that I could really get attached to, including the main characters, even though I could see that there was potential there. I could see that there was something possible for these characters to be interesting. It just never got to that point for me. So naturally, I wasn't super excited going into Scream 6. I was happy that they went back to the numbers because I think it just makes sense. This is the 6th entry of the franchise. Why not just throw a 6 on there like the previous sequels before it? It just makes sense. It works much better. But honestly, after seeing the movie, I've got to say, this is probably my favorite sequel of the entire franchise. Tyler Gillett and Matt Bettinelli-Olpin, who make up Radio Silence, directed a film that not only honors the legacy of the Scream franchise, but finally took it in a new direction to the point where it felt so fresh, so unique, so new. It was the reboot that was needed. In my opinion, this is a perfect example of how to do a requel. The characters that we somewhat got to know from the previous film are more fleshed out here. There's more time spent with just these characters alone, the core 4 as they call it, and there's not a lot of time spent on those legacy characters. Yes, Courteney Cox is in the movie, but obviously you know the fate of Dewey after the last film, and due to some conflicts financially, this is the first Scream movie that Neve Campbell did not appear in whatsoever. And while that worried me quite a bit going in, I've got to say that after the movie was over, I started thinking about just how much I felt like I didn't need those legacy characters at all. It was great to have Courteney Cox in there as Gale Weathers. She's a great character, but was she needed to make this movie work? Absolutely not. I think it also benefited the story big time that they branched out from just Woodsboro and they took a new leave in a new direction in a new location, exploring New York City, exploiting all of its ins and outs and making it feel like this massive cage that these characters were locked in, trapped at all corners by this ghost they thought they escaped but rears its ugly head once again. I've also got to say that the opening of this movie is probably one of my favorite openings in the franchise, if not my favorite. I think it was very clever and unique, and it really kind of threw me off guard as to what direction the film was going to go in. It starts off with the bang, and from there it never really slows down. The film explores new concepts that we have yet to see in the franchise. It plays around more with the visuals and with the set pieces overall, but it also still has those core values and those core elements that make up a good Scream movie, and it just sort of all worked together to make the perfect concoction. And the whole time I was sitting there thinking, wow, this movie is not disappointing whatsoever. In fact, my expectations have been blown out of the water. Not only does it feel like a Scream movie in the best ways, but at the same time, it was also able to up the stakes to where everything feels more serious. Everything feels like it has a larger weight to it. It's the goriest of the franchise by far. The kills, the chase sequences, everything about it just was amped up to another level. On top of that, it still contained the iconic Scream humor. This franchise has always been known for doing things to push things over the edge, but at the same time keeping somewhat of a levity to it to make it enjoyable, make you laugh, make you feel like you're just having a good time at the movies. And there were multiple times throughout this movie that I was laughing out loud. I was genuinely impressed by some of the dialogue and writing here. It was actually very solid. I never thought that at the 6th sequel in a franchise, I would be excited for the future, but they've proven that they've given this franchise a new life and that there's still plenty of stories to tell and ways to expand on it in new and interesting ways. And I think they introduced concepts here in this movie that while they didn't fully explore, it makes it quite intriguing from where they could go from here. And as I mentioned about not being very attached to the characters in the previous movie, That is the completely opposite story here. I think Sam and Tara are two of the best final girls in any horror movie at the moment, and I think they stand right up there with Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell. I think they offer enough of that charisma, they offer enough of that emotion, and they have that level of intrigue that their characters could just get more and more interesting from here. Now, I will say it's not a perfect movie, and I did have issues with it. My biggest being, I think they played it just a little bit safe when it comes to killing off the main characters. I feel like when you're this far in the franchise, it's time to start taking risks. They had a good start when they killed off Dewey in the previous movie. While I love the character, I feel like, yeah, at this point in the franchise, somebody's gotta die. They're not indestructible. And they had their opportunities here, and when I thought they were going in that direction, they kind of pulled back. They kind of reserved themselves. And I just wish they would have gone for it, because I think fans would have responded a bit better than they anticipated or think they might have. I just feel like it would have actually been beneficial and proved that there was much bigger stakes if they cut some characters off. And when it comes to the killer reveal, it was probably the most predictable in the entire franchise. I mean, I had the killers pegged within the first 10 minutes. If you really just pick up on the dialogue, the context clues, everything about the story as a whole, it's not too hard to figure out. But that said, once the reveal happens, it gets so bombastic and so wild that in a way it actually worked for me, just because of how the rest of the movie went. Because this movie was so off the rails to begin with and never slowed down, when the reveal happened and the way that things played out in that final act, I couldn't be mad at it. I do think they could have done it better and more effectively, but at the same time, the result that we got is good enough by me. So overall, I was thoroughly impressed with Scream 6. I think there is plenty here to enjoy for horror fans, especially fans of the franchise, and it did feel like they were returning to form somewhat, while also expanding on the story in a way that felt new and fresh, and also feels like they can continue on with this for quite a while. Same formula, new vision. That's the way to do a requel. There are a few nitpicks here and there, but overall, it is much better than I anticipated, and I'm really excited to say that I enjoyed this one. So, I'm going to have to give Scream 6 an 8.5 out of 10.
Awesome. Yes!
Real quick, make sure to comment down below. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the movie. What did you think about the killer reveal? Also, tell me, what is your favorite Scream sequel to date? I'd love to hear all of that down below. Also, if you would, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, I'll see y'all later. Peace out.